TV is providing the candidates for the Board of Selectmen in the town of Duxbury this opportunity to let the voters get to know them. Each of the candidates will be given 3 minutes for a candidate statement, wherein they will outline their campaign message. They will then be asked 3 questions and have 3 minutes to answer those questions. There are 4 candidates running for 1 position on the Board of Selectmen. Welcome, Fernando Guitart.
Hi there, Julie. How are you doing?
Thanks for being here. Please proceed with your candidate statement. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Duxbury. I hope you're safe and well and doing okay. My name is Fernando Guitart, and I'm running for Selectman at the special election and state primaries Tuesday, September 1st. And Selectman, I'm committed to represent all Duxbury. I believe my priorities will address, in part or in whole, the broad spectrum of the goals and aspirations of the community. Having listened to feedback from residents at town meetings and the numerous one-on-one conversations, I believe there are 3 principal goals of equal importance. A public school system that provides sustainable excellence in education, the preservation of the town's historic fabric and rural character, and delivery of town service in a fiscally responsible manner that is effective, efficient, and ultimately accountable to the taxpayers that fund our budget. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, I'll work in a collaborative, thoughtful, balanced, and fiscally responsible manner, building on the good work already done by the current and previous boards to address these important areas in what is becoming an increasingly difficult and challenging time for the town and its residents. I'm committed to do the best for the town that my family and I have happily called home since 2011. I bring with me over 35 years of corporate operational experience with an international energy company and a record of leadership working through complex and challenging issues. I currently serve on the Duxbury's Finance Committee, which is providing me with an understanding of municipal finances and nearly every major issue facing our town, from capital expenditures to operating budgets, from policy choices to strategic long-term planning. Being in the Finance Committee has also allowed me to build the relationships with town management, department heads, and the selectmen that will allow me to step in and work effectively from day one to address these key issues that we as a community need to confront and serve and solve. Combined with my corporate experience, I believe my leadership of the concerned citizens of Duxbury, the Duxbury Civic Association, and my current tenure on the Finance Committee makes me the best qualified candidate to serve Duxbury in these challenging times. You can find out more about my candidacy on Facebook at Fernando Guitart for Duxbury Selectmen, also on Instagram and Twitter at Fernando4Dux, as well on my website, www.fernandofordux.com. For the special election and state primaries, please note that obviously you can vote in person on the day, also by absentee ballot, which can be requested from the town clerk by August 26th, and through early voting at the Lieutenant Timothy Steele Athletic Building, August 22nd through 28th. You can also obtain additional information on the election on the town's website. I would really appreciate your vote at the special election. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. First question. As a result of the pandemic and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on people gathering, the town has not been able to conduct regular in-person board and committee meetings and has adapted to conduct these meetings virtually. How do you think this delivery method has impacted the town and the residents' ability to participate? And do you see a hybrid version being utilized in the future once there is some semblance of normal? You have 3 minutes.
Right, I do think that the virtual meetings have increased our ability to participate. Unless your meeting was in the mural room or televised via PAC TV, your only option to participate was in person. Now, with all meetings being held virtually, you can access them online, live on demand, you can send emails or call in, which is fantastic. Finance Committee meetings have never been televised. Now, at least you have the option to participate from home, which is great, especially for working families and seniors. Over 500 parents participated at yesterday's school committee meeting, which was amazing. However, for board and committee members, I must admit, there's a new syndrome out there, and it's called Zoom meeting fatigue. And we all know that in the end, nothing really beats the social and human interactions before, during, and after meetings, which take place when you're there. So in the future, once we get back to some semblance of normal, I'm looking forward to in-person meetings. However, if there's some form of hybrid out there, that increases our ability to participate in town governance, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Second question. What are your thoughts on presenting an override for the voters' consideration in the form of a debt exclusion ballot question to fund the construction of a new DPW building and finish the repairs of the entire 4,000 feet of the seawall? In addition, what are your thoughts on an override in form of a ballot question to fund an operational override for certain portions of the operating budget, such as public safety budgets like fire, police, DPW, and/or the school department? You have 3 minutes.
Last autumn, at the beginning of the fiscal 21 budget process, at the Finance Committee meeting, all the talk was about an override. We were seeing huge increases in cost of services, but we worked it. Renee, John Adams, department heads, we in the Finance Committee, fiscal advisor and the Selectmen. In the end, we delivered a balanced budget without needing that override for now. There are big needs out there, like you mentioned, the DPW barn, Powder Point Bridge, the seawall, and there is a growing concerns that the Duxbury Public Schools are not where they should be. I believe the voters are looking for the Selectmen to do two things. First is to thoroughly work the problem, both short-term and long-term strategically, always keeping in mind that it is the taxpayers' hard-earned money that they're dealing with. And secondly, to lead, engage, and support the community in a conversation about its needs and priorities. Only then, with that structure, the robust review and plan, community engagement and buy-in, can a ballot be presented to the voters that stands any chance of being approved.
Thank you. Third question. Currently, there is no cure or vaccine for COVID-19. Students are expected to resume classes in mid-September, and the reopening plans will be chosen between full-time in-person, full-time virtual learning, and/or a hybrid of the two. Given the three models being contemplated, how does this relate to the town's reopening plans? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. At yesterday's school committee meeting, the school committee voted on and approved a hybrid model for the coming school year that combines in-person and remote learning. Out of all the valuable services that the town provides, the library serves an important function and will need to be open, available, and have in place all the necessary health and safety protocols. The library provides consistent internet access to support remote learning for students who may not have that level of access at home. It also provides a study area for students to work in after their in-person day. They're not directly associated with the town's reopening. The Plymouth County CARES Act has made available to Duxbury $1.4 million through September 30th, of which the town has already earmarked $673,000 to augment the school's budget. Plymouth County has only allocated half the CARES Act funds that are available, and the next stimulus bill is looking to provide additional funding for school reopening. There's money out there, and the town can really help the schools by continuing to apply for state and federal funding to cover the school's budget, to cover for the additional pandemic-related costs that will be incurred.
Thank you, Fernando Guitart. And we now welcome Amy MacNab.
Hi, Julie, and thank you PAC TV for providing me this opportunity.
You're welcome. Please proceed with your candidate statement. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Amy MacNab, and I would be honored to represent the residents of Duxbury as a member of your Board of Selectmen. I have lived in Duxbury for 40 years, where my husband, Jamie, and I have raised our 3 smart and capable daughters. Now young women, they established a strong foundation for success by attending Duxbury Public Schools, as did their father, their grandmother, and her father and grandfather before her. We have long roots in this town, and we are proud and a proud history of civic duty and volunteerism. I was elected 3 times to the Duxbury Planning Board, serving a total of 14 years, and for 7 years I served as chairperson. I gained a unique understanding of Duxbury's bylaws and the specific responsibilities of each committee and board within our linear form of government. As chairperson of the Planning Board, I gained valuable experience running public hearings, often with very large crowds. I'm proud of the control, professionalism, and courtesy with which these meetings were conducted, even during contentious and controversial projects. During my 14 years on the Planning Board and my 40 years as a resident of Duxbury, I have made every effort to protect our fresh and saltwater resources to maintain our semi-rural character and to acquire lands to add to our open space and conservation inventory. I have worked as a paralegal at the same firm for more than 25 years. At our office, we embrace a team approach work ethic, and while the practice of law can often be high stress, my coworkers and I share a relationship of mutual respect, support, and friendship. Working together, getting along, and respecting one another is a work and life ethic I bring to every situation. Ruth Rowley was a longtime Duxbury resident, serving on numerous boards, and she was very active in town government. Ruth was a mentor, role model, and friend. Ruth encouraged me to ask the questions. I am a regular attendee at town meeting, and I make every effort to follow Ruth's advice and ask those questions I hope will provide information to the voters. I attempt to create more transparency and seek common sense ways to be fiscally responsible. During this extraordinary time, I acknowledge the many challenges that we face, and I recognize the unknown challenges that we are sure to encounter. I will strive to make informed and strategic decisions that positively impact our future. I will be your advocate and your voice. I will be accessible, approachable, and respectful. I will continue to advocate for all the residents, remembering the added difficulties for those on a fixed income. Our past efforts in conservation, protection, and development have shaped the town now entrusted to us. Today, it is our decisions that will shape the Duxbury our children and grandchildren will inherit. Please vote on September 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. First question. As a result of the pandemic and the governor's orders imposing strict limitations on people gathering, the town has not been able to conduct regular in-person board or committee meetings and has adapted to conduct meetings virtually. How do you think this delivery method has impacted the town and the residents' ability to participate? Also, do you see a hybrid version being utilized in the future once there is some semblance of normal? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. The challenges associated with the COVID-19 pandemic are enormous, and navigating these obstacles requires all of us to be creative. Many of us have been introduced to Zoom, Teams, and other web-based programs that have allowed us to visit with our families and even attend functions and celebrations, albeit virtually. While it isn't the same as being there in person, this technology is hugely helpful in maintaining our connections. Virtual meetings by way of Zoom or other platforms as the only means of attendance at public meetings and hearings is not my first choice, as I fear it may limit some of our residents' ability to attend and contribute to the process of decision making. However, while this may be true for some, for others it may actually provide the opportunity to participate. By leveraging technology, we open ourselves to attendance from those who would otherwise be at home with their children in the evening or traveling for work and not able to attend in person. I feel strongly that transparency and public participation are essential when arriving at decisions that affect our town, its residents, and our future. Therefore, when we are able to get back to some semblance of normal, I would advocate for public meetings and hearings to be accessible to residents both in person and virtually.
Thank you. Second question. What are your thoughts on presenting an override for the voters' consideration in the form of a debt exclusion ballot question to fund the construction of a new DPW building and finish the repairs of the entire 4,000 feet of the seawall? In addition, what are your thoughts to an override in form of a ballot question to fund an operational override for certain portions of the operating budget, such as public safety budgets like fire, police, or DPW, and/or the school department? You have 3 minutes.
I believe that debt exclusions have an important role in our town's finances, particularly when related to capital projects, such as the DPW building or the seawall. Money borrowed by way of a debt exclusion temporarily increases property taxes only for the period of time it takes to pay the debt, and it is outside the limits of Proposition 2.5. I do not believe that it is appropriate to use debt exclusions or to borrow money to fund the operating budget, nor am I in favor of ballot questions to override portions of the operating budget. It is the town's job to forecast and budget for the costs associated with operating our town. To think of this in simpler terms, use the analogy of running a household. You make every effort to live within your means. However, at times, large issues will arise, like a roof replacement. This is your capital project. In these cases, you may need to borrow money in the short term to protect your home and fix the roof. But you wouldn't borrow money to pay for everyday expenses, such as heat and electric bills. These everyday costs are your operating costs, which need to be anticipated and budgeted for. Borrowing money to pay for your everyday expenses is not a good way to run a household or a town. In summary, I am open to the use of debt exclusion ballot questions when necessary for capital projects, but do not believe they are appropriate for operating costs. I am a longtime vocal participant at town meeting when it comes to the town's budget, the tax bills we receive are only the result of the spending and budget we approve at town meeting. As a selectman, I will continue to advocate on behalf of all the taxpayers in Duxbury, keeping in mind the difficulties many families have to keep up with the rising tax burden.
Thank you. Third question. Currently, there is no cure or vaccine for COVID-19. Students are expected to resume classes in mid-September, and the reopening plans will be chosen between full-time in-person, full-time virtual learning, and/or a hybrid of the two. Given the three models being contemplated, how does this relate to the town's reopening plans? You have 3 minutes.
The challenges associated with opening the schools are extraordinarily difficult. Different plans have been outlined, and I certainly agree that the students are best served if they have an in-school experience. However, and this is a big however, not at the expense of the health of even one of our children, or the staff, or the families of our students and staff. While the education of our students may not be traditional moving forward, it must be done with the safety and health of our students and staff as our #1 priority. Now that we know the plan for the start of the school year, our community must be ready to be flexible and not hesitate to change the plan immediately if circumstances warrant. I understand the enormous stress and impossible difficulties parents are facing as they grapple with the anxieties of their children's return to school, as well as the challenges of students remaining at home for remote learning. I also know how scary and hard this time is for our tireless and passionate educators. 2 of my daughters work in higher education and face these unique challenges as we speak. We must remain flexible and, above all, see the many perspectives and places of concern that our community members are coming from. In a country so divided, I hope to see Duxbury instead unite in our common values and seek to understand each other in the many complex concerns surrounding this new world we're living in. To address the town's role in reopening spaces like the library, I am steadfast that we must be abiding by CDC and state guidelines. Prior to COVID, many students utilized the library after school until they were picked up. I remember picking up my girls from the library when they would work on their homework, check out books, socialize with their friends. In our current environment, however, our town must abide by the restrictions in place to protect our community from an outbreak. There are many questions we need to explore, and if we are to use the library in the way it was used in the past, it should only be when we can ensure the health and safety of our students, the staff, and the families of each. In the meantime, it is exciting to see the library's innovative solutions and creative events to serve the public amidst the COVID-19 crisis. I know I speak for all of us when I say I look forward to the day when kids walk up to the library or out to sports practice after school each day. But in order to see that day, we must continue to be vigilant, cautious, and creative in our approach. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Amy MacNab. Welcome to Paul McCormack.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please proceed with your candidate statement. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Paul McCormack, a candidate for the Board of Selectmen. I have been a resident of Duxbury for 35 years. I have an advanced degree in finance and am a retired banker. I am an elected board member of the Duxbury Housing Authority, a member of the Community Preservation Committee, a member of the Duxbury Lions, and an active volunteer at the Duxbury Food Pantry. The issues facing the town have not been eliminated due to the pandemic. These issues must be prioritized and acted upon. The good news in a somewhat unsettled picture is that the finances of the town government have not been seriously impacted. The vast bulk of the town's revenues are a result of property taxes. These have not changed. To all of the Chicken Littles out there, of the 352 towns and cities in the Commonwealth, Duxbury is probably in the top 10% of the communities least impacted financially by this pandemic. Where do I stand on certain issues? Development. Development is coming. The town and its various committees would be best served by proactively dealing with developers and working to get developments the town can embrace, not love, but embrace. Development means housing, and Duxbury needs a mix of more affordable housing. Recently, the town, working through the Affordable Housing Trust, has been working on a development on Lincoln Street. This property was proposed by town meeting for affordable housing, and the predecessor to the Affordable Housing Trust was asked to make it happen. The town meeting was in 1988, 32 years ago, and the project is now in its preliminary stages. Another issue, the rural and historic character of the town. The historic homes and streetscapes have a lot to do with that, but not all old houses are historic, and not all old houses should be preserved. There are other historical traditions which set Duxbury apart. One is the use and display of yard signs. Traditionally, the town has discouraged the littering of our streetscape with political signage. You will not see any McCormack for Selectmen signs in Duxbury because I respect the town's traditions. It's also because I'm frugal. Respect for tradition, frugality, two traits that you should want to see in a selectman. Please vote for me on September 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Your first question. As a result of the pandemic and the governor's order imposing strict limitations on people gathering, the town has not been able to conduct regular in-person board or committee meetings and has adapted to conduct meetings virtually. How do you think this delivery method has impacted the town and the residents' ability to participate? And do you see a hybrid version being utilized in the future once there is some semblance of normal? You have 3 minutes.
The current Zoom meeting format is merely adequate for the town's purposes. It seriously limits the amount of rigorous debate and public participation. To counter this, the town and its committees need to be especially transparent. First, the town's website needs to be updated effectively and often. Second, every committee should review and approve meeting minutes as soon as possible. The next meeting, and the minutes should be uploaded to the town's website as soon as possible. Third, the agendas for meetings should be more informative. For example, the Board of Selectmen's agenda for August 3 had this item: discussion pertaining to the village at Harlow Brook. What and where is the village at Harlow Brook? I didn't know, and I suspect very few people knew what this was about. The agenda should have included, perhaps in parentheses, 770 to 780 Temple Street. By adding this slight bit of information, the public would be aware of the location of this proposed development and could make use of this information to call in and listen to the town discussion. Simple, costless, and yet much more informative and transparent. Every committee should recognize that their agendas are written for the public and not merely for those in the know or to satisfy a state mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Second question. What are your thoughts on presenting an override for the voters' consideration in the form of a debt exclusion ballot question to fund the construction of a new DPW building and finish the repairs of the entire 4,000 feet of the seawall? In addition, what are your thoughts to an override in the form of a ballot question to fund an operational override for certain portions of the operating budget, such as public safety budgets like fire, police, and DPW, and/or the school department? You have 3 minutes.
3 parts. An override for the construction of a new DPW is an easy yes. That's how the town has funded all of its major capital projects. Finishing the repairs of the entire seawall is very different. First, should the entire town shoulder the burden for a seawall which protects a certain portion of the town? Perhaps the people impacted should pay the costs on an extended timeline, similar to how the shared septic system on Landing Road was handled. Given the general consensus of sea level rise, should the town spend a large sum of money on a seawall which will prove inadequate in the foreseeable future? If it comes to a debt exclusion ballot question, the entire town will get to vote. I suspect that the people favoring the town picking up the entire tab will be very disappointed. An override for the operating budget is quite different. In the case of a debt exclusion, which disappears over time as the debt is retired, an override for the operating budget is with us forever. It basically resets the tax levy at a higher level. I would support such an override only if a very serious look was done to right-size every department. I mean a serious look and a true right-sizing. Thank you.
Thank you. Third question. Currently, there is no cure or vaccine for COVID-19. Students are expected to resume classes in mid-September, and the reopening plans will be chosen between full-time in-person, full-time virtual learning, and/or a hybrid of the two. Given the 3 models being contemplated, how does this relate to the town's reopening plans? You have 3 minutes.
The Board of Selectmen have very little impact into the management of the schools. The town has an elected school committee to handle school issues. They hire a superintendent to manage the schools. Think of the school board as the Board of Selectmen and the superintendent as the town manager. I wouldn't ask a candidate for school committee to comment on the running of the DPW. There are some areas under the Board of Selectmen which do overlap with the schools. The library is one. The library, however, serves many more than the town's students. Many students and many of our less affluent citizens depend on the library for such things as internet access. I set up an email address for the food pantry in order to make deliveries during the pandemic. I was surprised to find that many of the people the food pantry wished to serve had no access to the internet, except at the library. The town should reopen the library as soon as allowed by the state in a manner allowed by the state. This is regardless as to what the school committee does with the school reopening. The Board of Selectmen should support any decision made by the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Paul McCormack. We welcome Michael McGee.
Good morning, and thank you, Julie, and thank you, PAC TV, for having me.
Thank you. Please proceed with your candidate statement. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning or good afternoon, Duxbury. And I am Mike McGee. I'm running for Selectman for the town of Duxbury for the special election on September 1st. A little bit about me. I'm a father of 2 children, ages 4 and 6, who are in the Duxbury public school system. I'm also a prosecutor. I have been serving victims and families in Norfolk County since 2011, both as a trial prosecutor and also as an appellate prosecutor, arguing hundreds of cases before juries and judges, and also before the appellate courts and the Supreme Judicial Court, and more recently for the parole boards and Bridgewater State Hospital's mental health court. I am running in this race because I want to use my legal tools, my advocacy for public safety, and my commitment to public service, and my family's experiences to help during these challenging times in Duxbury. I love our town. I love our beaches. I love our historic neighborhoods and our antique homes. And I put my money where my mouth is. I bought a 300-year-old home and I've been taking care of it with my wife. I also joined the local historic district committee, and I have been working with those folks to preserve our homes, preserve our antique homes and historic homes. And I hope that in our fall special town meeting, that my home will be added to the Bradford district. Also, like many working families, I've been telecommuting and I've been shopping local, I've been eating local, and we aren't going to Boston anymore to be shopping there. There's great opportunity here in our neighborhood to improve our small business community and to work with them and have them at the table when we talk about planning and congestion and traffic, and to try to help our small businesses serve us as best we can. I also love our neighborhood's natural treasures, our beaches, our forests. And speaking about the beach, I think there's great opportunity to improve our relationship with Duxbury Beach Reservation. They protect our coastline, they preserve our natural treasure out there. And I think that we need to have a resident-driven solution to accessibility to Duxbury Beach. And that needs to be done in September, not in next May. We need to sit down with our community and come up with a better way to improve accessibility to Duxbury Beach. We also need to improve our education about what the reservation does for this community and all the money that they spend and all the time they commit to protecting our beach from state takeover and protecting our coastline. They do a fabulous job out there. I also, and this is a very pressing concern, that impacts our entire community. I'm also concerned about reentry into our school program. There'll be another question about that, and I'll speak about that later. But for now, as I'll ask you at the end, I ask humbly for your vote on September 1st. There'll be early voting, there'll be mail-in voting, and I hope that I can earn your support on September 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. First question. As a result of the pandemic and the governor's order imposing strict limitations on people gathering, the town has not been able to conduct regular in-person board and committee meetings and has adapted to conduct meetings virtually. How do you think this delivery method has impacted the town and the residents' ability to participate? And do you see a hybrid version being utilized in the future once there is some semblance of normal? You have 3 minutes.
I love this question, and absolutely. Necessity is the mother of invention. I've been seeing this play out in the courts and in local government. The platforms that have been used as far as like WebEx or Zoom, they're allowing for more accessibility to town government, and that's great. It's not only safe to our seniors and our community, it's bringing family members, our families back into local government in a profound way. If you look at our school committee meetings, they went from in-person meetings with about 15 people at them to last night, there was so many people on the Zoom call for the school committee vote on reentry that they had an overflow, more than 250 people on the Zoom call and more on the Facebook Live that wanted to hear about the plans for school in the fall. And that's not possible for a lot of folks that are taking care of their families, driving kids to events in a pre-COVID atmosphere. That what this allows people to do is simply shut off their video, mute themselves, and participate in community meetings, and even hand off the phone or the computer to their spouse so that they can take notes. Those are things that aren't possible with a solely in-person meeting atmosphere. I think we have a great opportunity to create an environment where people are educated and know things before town meeting. And it also keeps town more accountable and more transparent as the year goes by and all these monthly meetings and weekly meetings take place. It allows not only people to participate as they're happening, but you folks in PAC TV have streaming media. You also archive many meetings, and it allows people to watch finance committee meetings at 3 a.m. if they want to, whenever they want. They can participate and be knowledgeable about what's going on. And I think going forward, and I will go going forward as your next selectman, I'll work with our community to educate our public on how best to use these tools, try to make them, improve them, and make them more accessible to folks so that we can make town hall more accessible going forward. I think it's a huge thing for our community, and I look forward to helping with that.
Thank you. Second question. What are your thoughts on presenting an override for the voters' consideration in the form of a debt exclusion ballot question to fund the construction of a new DPW building and finish the repairs of the entire 4,000 feet of the seawall? In addition, what are your thoughts to an override in the form of a ballot question to fund an operational override for certain portions of the operating budget, such as public safety budgets like fire, police, DPW, and/or the school department? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, and that's a lot. But in Duxbury, we have a community-driven budget process, and we decide our budget at town meeting. Our voters, our public decide that. And our public expects a lot. They expect to be educated, and they expect to know where their dollars are going. And to that end, the public has not had an appetite for overrides generally. To the extent they support overrides historically, the debt exclusion override for a specific project has had a little bit more appetite because it's got a finite period that the bonds end when the payment ends, and that the budget would return to where it was before the override, as opposed to a general override, which at the end of the payments on the bond, another bond could simply come in for another project. Speaking specifically to the seawall, again, there hasn't been a community-wide support to repair or replace the seawall. For that to be accepted or even presented at a town meeting, our finance committee, our town, has to really have their arms wrapped around the actual costs, have to exhaust negotiations with FEMA, and to present it and educate the public well before town meeting, so that they know exactly where their dollars are going to be spent on this and why they're doing it, and whether it's for the accessibility to the beach, to protect the homes, to protect our coastline. Those are important issues, but the town has to know where their dollars are being spent and why they're being spent. Additionally, and in the same vein, I think there's an understanding, and I live next door to the DPW lot. There's an understanding that it's not acceptable for our millions of dollars in equipment to be kept in garages that are falling apart and in makeshift tents. It's not acceptable for our employees who are asking to serve this community to be repairing and starting equipment in New England weather outside. However, it has also been not appetizing to the public to spend $19 million on a garage. I think that as we go forward, I would work with our DPW employees to come up with a plan or a presentation that protects our equipment and protects our employees so that they can serve our community in a cost-efficient manner during these challenging times. These are challenging times. We have to work within our means to efficiently serve our community.
Thank you. Third question. Currently, there is no cure or vaccine for COVID-19. Students are expected to resume classes in mid-September, and the reopening plans will be chosen between full-time in-person, full-time virtual learning, and/or a hybrid of the two. Given the three models being contemplated, how does this relate to the town's reopening plans? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for this question. It is the most pressing concern that our community faces, not just our parents, our seniors, our community at large is going to be impacted by their reentry into the school system. Our economy, everything is impacted by our reentry into the school system. And this is personal to me. I am the father of 2 children who will be entering this school system. I'm the only candidate that is running in this race that is a parent of school-age children. I am sending 2 children into a school system during a pandemic. It's incredibly challenging. And it's been incredibly challenging as a working parent to have 2 children at my feet, to have to work out alternate plans for care of my children. My wife works as well. We are doing it, and we're getting through this. And like many families, we have overcome some of those challenges, but it's not getting any better. And as far as a reentry program, the school department and the superintendent and our school committee have done a fantastic job with the hand that they have been dealt with. They are working to keep our community safe, our teachers safe, our children safe, and I'm proud of their work. I think they've done an excellent job. To that end, last night, the school committee approved a hybrid school plan. An in-person plan would simply not be, a full in-person plan would simply not work under the state regulations right now. What was approved last night essentially is that your child will go to school for 2 days a week, will be at home learning for 2 days a week, and will have 1 day of independent work. Obviously, for working families, that's untenable, and that's going to be a challenge. But what I am hopeful for is that so long as we have our families going through those doors for the first time since March 13th, that we can build off of that. I am hopeful for our future. Our children need to be educated. But number one, our community needs to be safe. Our seniors need to be safe. Our community at large, our children absolutely need to be safe, and that's a priority of mine. However, I think we need to build off of this, learn from it, find out what's working, what's not, and I look forward as your next selectman, working with the school committee, working with the superintendent, and working with our school department as a whole to make sure that we can bring our children back to school in a safe manner and protect our teachers, seniors, and families in town here. Thank you very much. And again, I ask for your vote on September 1st.
Thank you. That was Michael McGee. Please remember to vote in the town election scheduled to be held on Tuesday, September 1st. I'm Julie Thompson for PAC TV. Stay informed, keep it local. Good day.